Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Dan, thanks for coming back on. It's been
and I need to have you back on as well soon.
Yeah, no, it'd be a lot changes in both of our industries in a year, and so nothing stays the same, I suppose. But
it's interesting when you have people back on, the conversation's richer, right? Maybe the audience knows a little bit about who you are, but also you just know each other more, so the conversation's richer. So I've been really enjoying the return folks.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate it. And you and I had the chance to connect in a couple different places, right? Mental health marketing. Rest in peace, I suppose. But Nashville
yes, that's right. And you're sponsoring Joe again, right?
Yeah. We will be at Group Practice Con 2026 conference.
Just you this time?
Is it just me? From the company? Yeah, it'll just be me. And It's easy drive. And Catherine has, she's got 3 kiddos that she's managing during the day. So she's not busy at all, Dan.
Yeah, she's got nothing to do.
Nothing going on. So it's all good. But yeah, how are you? How's Fireside?
How am I? So I am just off to Spain in 7 hours or so, 9 hours, something like that. Amazing. So that should be really interesting. I'm going to do part of the Camino de Santiago, which is this walk.
The walk, yeah.
You're probably familiar now that I think about it.
Camino, yeah, of course. You're not doing the whole thing. It's pretty big.
I wish I had time, but I think I'm doing 3 or 4 days. So that's a very small percentage of it.
That's pretty good, though. Yeah, it is something. You're kind of an adventurer, right? Do people know this about you? That like you're not just the NA guy, right? You're like the get out and like beat the streets kind of guy.
I am. When I was in law school, Mad Men was a big thing, and I can remember really relating not to every aspect of Don Draper, but that part of him that says, I'm going to do work. I'm going to do it in an impressive and useful way. And then I'm just going to disappear for a bit. And then he would disappear for long stretches of time. Who knows where he would go? People wouldn't understand why. But sometimes you just know you need a perspective shift. And sort of there are these moments in life where I certainly don't travel as much as I used to, but travel becomes so valuable as a perspective shifter.
And there's something about a long hike like Camino that really will reset you in a nice way, right? Because it's everything in a journey, right? It's exciting, it's hard, it resolves. It's really, really good. So are you just solo?
No. So one of my very good buddies just finished medical school. So this is partly a celebration for that. And his dad is coming, and then another friend. And all 4 of us are from my hometown, or like the area around my hometown. So it's fun to reconnect with a sense of home, where I live relatively far away from where I grew up in the East Coast of Canada. I live in Miami now.
Right.
So it's really cool to reconnect with an aspect of your roots.
Oh, that's so fun, Dan. Well, can't wait to hear about that in a few weeks when I see you again, because you're going to go, right? You'll be there?
Yep. I will see you at Joe's.
What a shift to go from Spain to Traverse City. That'll be kind of fun, though. I mean, those are like beautiful places. So, and then Miami's nice, but yeah. Well, what's new in Fireside's world? Anything you can share?
I would say we are getting clearer and clearer on what a good partnership looks like. So I've been thinking a lot about building partnerships. And most of our transactions involve keeping an operator in place with an ambitious growth trajectory that still protects the culture that's been built and ideally improves it. And so in order to pull that off, if you're going to keep working with the operator, the founder, they're not going to leave, then you have to build a good partnership with them. You have to be very aligned. And so thinking a lot about how to do that. And I mentioned to you a little while ago that I have ended up starting doing some sell side work. I will do kind of one or two sell side representations. And there too, it's about partnership creation and thinking about who do I see this person that I'm representing or this set of practice founders, who do I see them partnering with? Who can both add value? Who will connect with them well on a personal level so that we build something that's bigger than the sum of its parts? And that's a fascinating human and business and legal challenge.
One of some of the challenges there. I mean, I also like if I were to sell a practice, I would absolutely wait until you're available. It's sort of like a contractor. You never hire the contractor that's like available today. You always hire the contractor that's available in 4 months because you know that contractor is busy, and therefore good. So I imagine that's kind of like your schedule, right? Would be
Too
like,
kind, too kind. Yes, yes. Can't do too many of these.
no, we sure can't. So what are some of the challenges from the buy and sell side or the sell side now that you've gotten involved?
It's important for me to build empathy with the people that I'm representing. So these are folks who have never worked with professional investors before.
Mm.
And it helps me on the buy side to understand them at a deeper level. When I'm working with them this closely, I can see their fears. And every M&A process is an emotional vortex. I always warn people, both on the buy side and especially the sell side. I warn them, if you're going to do this, you'll be dragons. It's going to be intense. There's no way around that. So seeing people in those tender moments is very empathy building for me as a buyer. I'm very glad I'm doing it. And it can be hard to be with people in those tender moments, but it's important, and it's impossible to do the deals if you can't do that.
Oh, that's great. I love that. And it is a tender moment. I think you were just talking about this before we jumped on, but somebody who's like, well, you guys are all about the math. That sentence just shows you the distancing language in your industry, right? Like that's just pregnant with animosity. Do you feel like that culture
100%.
is like, yeah. Do you feel like that's necessary, or do you find yourself now falling into transactions that are not like that?
Is the animosity necessary?
Yeah.
It's a very good question. I don't know 100%. Every transaction has its own flavor. And so some become more acrimonious than others. And that's probably no accident, because if the people aren't really the right fit, the deal probably won't get done. And if it does, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know for a fact. I can tell you every transaction has a different flavor. And because it's this emotionally intense moment, the boundaries drop sometimes. And you can see people triggering each other. You can see different aspects of ourselves relating in unconventional ways to other people. So I've seen everything from buyers and sellers totally losing their tempers with each other. I've seen triggers just all of a sudden in people that I've known quite well come out that I've never seen before, because we're all kind of locked in this strange dance together in M&A. So a lot can happen.
Yeah.
And it's an unusual kind of relationship where the ultimately most likely the truth of what we all think about each other, just like in a romantic relationship, the truth comes out eventually.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can hide for one meeting. You cannot hide for multiple meetings or even over a year, right? I mean, you're like who you are is going to pop out, and then we can deal with some real things for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about before that valuation is always like the big question mark, right? And the thing that you said that came to my mind as a parallel, you said that there's a lot of weight behind valuation, right? Like what's my practice worth from a financial perspective? And you said there's a lot of expectation on that. And it feels a little bit like an IQ test, right? Like people put a lot of weight in that number, right? Talk about valuation and what that means for a practice owner.
On one level, if I've been building a business for a really significant percentage of my career and it's valued lower than I feel it should be, that really hurts. That's an attack on my pride. Similarly, it's always pleasant when you can surprise people and the practice is worth more than they thought it was. It makes me think a little bit of for anyone that has trained in some forms of Buddhist meditation. I'm thinking of one in particular where they talk about don't get attached to the feeling of excitement or the feeling of disappointment. Just watch each of them come up and see what happens, right? Don't get too attached to either because they're both going to shift. But yeah, valuation can be super, super sensitive for sellers. And from a buyer's perspective, every buyer has slightly different incentives. But as investors in a for-profit world, we need to see returns. And so we're super, super sensitive to choices around how capital is allocated.
Mm-hmm.
And different stakeholders we have may have different views depending on how a deal evolves. It's a diplomatic way of putting it, but everyone is sensitive to valuation. The deal has to feel fair, and it has to feel fair to both parties. It being fair objectively, and then it has to feel fair to both parties.
No, that makes total sense, right? Like, as people who deal with allocating resource, like, you want a good deal, right? But the seller's not going to sell if they feel like they're getting underswept, right, or undercut. So, is the 10x EBITDA, the 10x valuation real? Is that not, that doesn't happen?
It would have to be a very unique asset. That's unusual.
Would have to come
Multiples
with like,
tend to be generous, so
okay,
maybe good for listeners to understand, a multiple is when we're thinking about what is the overall value of a company, we take the profitability and then we multiply it by something. So if your profit is $1 million and you have a 5x multiple, that means your business is worth $5 million. The multiple you get, in theory, comes from the market. So it's just like when you're selling a house, the market at different times is going to say your house should be worth more, right? So the multiples go up or down depending on where the market is. And in mental health and in health in general, the multiples tend to be higher than in some other industries. And that definitely evolves over time. But to see an independent and outpatient practice that we look at, is it worth 10x? It would have to be a very interesting to a buyer, very, very unconventional business where a lot was done extremely well. The operator was excellent. Every box would probably have to be ticked.
Which would be very hard. I mean, for anybody who's not done a due diligence anything, it's like the worst test you've ever seen. Like hundreds of boxes would have to be checked in order to achieve that. So yeah, and I've always been told that M&A is like you're timing interest rates and sentiment and market shift and economics of your own business and any other anomaly that comes in and goes. Is there anything uniform about this process? Like you just gave us one calculation, but in your mind, are there things that practice owners can start to tee up in order to like make sure they know right around where their practice is worth?
That's pretty hard to do. It is a more complicated conversation.
Yeah,
but I can certainly give folks, if it's helpful, pointers around some risks to mitigate, some general things.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, let's talk about risk. Yeah, how do you mitigate some risk?
The big one is payer concentration. One is payer concentration. This has come up a lot for us. So if it's great to be able to generate revenue for you from 70% of your business comes from one payer, and you decide you're either going to cherry pick referrals or you're going to engineer the business such that that payer, which hopefully it has a pretty good reimbursement rate, it's paying for your kid's college. Investors aren't going to think that way. So investors are going to think to themselves, so on the one hand, it's great that this business has good margins, this business is relatively profitable, but a professional investor is going to go under the hood and understand the why. And they're going to, not every dollar is considered equally valuable to an investor. And so if too many of the dollars come from one source and that source is notoriously unreliable, that's the double kiss of death right there.
Yeah.
And so how your business is viewed by an investor is very different than how you would view it on your own with no professional partner. So payer concentration is a big one. Retention is a big one. So, and by retention, I mean clinician retention. Can you keep your people? Do they like working with you? They've got a lot of different places they can go. The group practice industry continues to grow. So I could start a group practice tomorrow and try to poach your clinicians. And if I was really well funded, I could maybe offer to pay them more. But I've run into practices that may pay their people a little less than the absolute top of the market, but they still retain their people at a really, really high rate. And we can get into some of the reasons why that might be. But a good investor is going to want to know, especially one that cares about culture as we do, we're going to want to know that you've been able to keep your people for a relatively long amount of time. Because if the clinicians leave, this is a people business, losing revenue, profit, and
training cost, HR, potential lawsuits, all kinds of stuff.
And there's broader cultural risk, right? Could we have a run on the bank, basically, where 10 clinicians leave a 30 clinician practice? I've seen it happen. Maybe others leave.
Well, then the patients leave, right? Because you can't box the patients in. right? That was always the conversation a few years ago was, oh, I get to keep the patients if the clinician leaves. It's like, no, this is healthcare. Can't do that. That's not a
And there's even a
thing.
special aspect to the therapist-patient relationship.
Okay,
So it
that's
goes
correct.
beyond your typical healthcare situation where that relationship is protected in law generally. So not to say it can't happen that sometimes the practice does keep the patient, but there are reasons in mental health why it's tougher than in even other parts of healthcare.
Yeah, it's so true, right? I was just on a webinar talking about this, but a payer was asking for the treatment note, like the psychotherapy note from a practice. And I said, go tell them to pound sand. Cause like you have to have a court order, right? You look this up in the HIPAA legislation, right? I mean, they cannot get access to like the psychotherapy note that you wrote. They can get access to like schedule, diagnosis, the treatment record, but the guts of the work that you do is held in higher regard by the law.
Yeah. They would have to get one of those special contracts.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, I mean,
it's a big deal
it
for
is.
sure. So don't send your
Patient
notes.
info is sacrosanct. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And you've seen like when the valuation is good and everything looks good financially. Have you seen founders walk away from like life-changing dollars? Because why? Why would somebody do that?
I'm thinking about a couple of instances I can think of. Let's say the business is doing very well and the founder feels the valuation that was agreed to at the beginning of the journey is no longer fair. They think the business is worth more. Maybe the investor doesn't, and now they can no longer align on the value of the business. So that's one thought. That's one thing I've seen. I've also seen founders, and this is rarer, but I'm one instance I can think of where, we offered a founder an extraordinary, like really life-changing amount of money. And they were just so confident and optimistic they could keep growing the business at an exponential rate that they liked us. They saw some value and they felt it would have been just so massively undervaluing what they were doing given their confidence in the trajectory. So it's one thing to think that there's a value difference. Then it's another thing to think, I'm just going to continue to grow this for the next 5 years and it's going to be a monster. So I can think of one example like that.
Yeah. And can you tell us the end of that story? Did that happen?
That deal did not happen.
Okay, that deal did not happen. But did they continue to grow at an exponential rate over 5 years?
I don't know about 5 years, but I have had an interesting email exchange. And the claim is that the growth is still very strong.
Oh, that's good. Good for them.
Yeah.
Wow. Just because the vibe was off? Like, I don't know about this.
No, I don't think it was so much the vibe. I think it was this business is going to be worth so much more. You're offering me a very legitimate amount of money, but I'm so confident I can grow this and I don't need you for that.
Wow.
I can just do this on my own and it's going to be incredible and it is going to happen. Like a level of certainty, which was very impressive to me. Because offering the amount of money we offered, there are very few mental health professionals in the country that would turn that down. I mean, almost none. And I was just so impressed. Of course, made me want to do the deal more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, right.
You got to swallow your humble pie sometimes. And I loved it. I have so much respect for this person.
Wow. I mean, yeah, they have to have a level of certainty that they can do it in order to make that happen. What a cool story, Dan. I love that. Would you recommend that to most people? Like, take yourself out of the buy-sell side. If you're sure you can do it yourself, should you turn it down? Or should you weigh the risk that you don't know what 5 years looks like?
Well, if you're certain you can do it, that makes the decision easier, doesn't it? Should you be certain you can do it is maybe another question.
Oh, that's a good question.
Look, I think we all have different worldviews. And intuition is also a powerful thing. You can kind of feel when you meet someone, does this make sense? So I think there's a lot of different ways people make these decisions. And it's so interesting to see different personalities make these decisions. If it were me, I definitely made some mistakes earlier in my entrepreneurial life. And so the way I think about things, I'm still an entrepreneur. So I am probably more open to risk than your average person out there. And I think there's a lot to be said to know that you have enough money in the bank to take care of your family. And you have the potential to earn so much more if you pick the right partner. So the way our deals typically work is for a business that's large enough, which typically means 2 million of profit or up in outpatient mental health. We buy, a solid chunk of the business, typically a majority. We'll leave the founder with a solid stake. And now they have a very strong motivation to work with us. Well, we can do some things they typically can't. Even in this case of the super optimistic founder, we could do things he can't do, but he just was confident he could figure it out on his own.
Okay.
But in our typical case, we're buying a majority, and we buy a majority at, about what the market says we should. And then if all goes well, the deal closes, there's a certain amount of time that we're working together, and where we've got to be aligned on our big picture objectives of growing the practice. Typically, if we're looking at a therapy practice, we're going to want to add psychiatry to it, as well as some other services. If those services are there, we can potentially optimize those services. We can look at other acquisitions that may be synergistic. We can look at other services. There's a lot of different things that we can do. And the aim would be to resell in roughly 5 years, and we'll have built a pie that is so much bigger that we call it a second bite at the apple, right? The first bite of the apple is when they get the initial payout for a chunk of the business. Second bite at the apple, there's no guarantee it happens, but if we're the right fit, then it will happen. And then that second bite is larger than the first.
I mean, that's a lot of apple, Dan. I mean, it's pretty great.
It's pretty juicy.
It is pretty juicy. And I will tell you, ever since we built out the tool where we can look at rates now, I can tell you the practices with the better reimbursement rates are doing not just therapy, right? They're usually, now there are exceptions to that, of course, but they're usually doing multiple things and usually doing a lot of volume, right? It's really exciting though when you find a really high volume organization that's getting underswept by the rate, and then some really exciting things can happen, right? Because you have more levers to pull. But when I look at private practices just crushing it,
are you doing those? Are you helping them with those negotiations, or you're just assimilating the data and you're able to inform them?
Yeah, we're just assimilating the data. It would be a good idea for us to get involved in that. I think at some point we have a very good referral that we send people to that negotiate those rates. And I know you guys have an in-house like pit bull with a ribeye kind of guy, right? That goes for it. But
I'm going to tell him you said that pit bull with a ribeye.
Yeah,
so it's not an unfair description. Yeah.
All right, great. He won't be insulted that I said that then.
No, he won't be.
That's good. And that's kind of what you need a little bit. But no, that's good. We'll get right back to the podcast episode. But first, let me ask you a question. Who is the highest paid insurance biller in your practice? If you're the one doing your billing, the answer is you. If you're the practice owner and you're a clinician, you know the drill. You do the hard work, you deliver great services. And then there's this waiting game. There's billing after hours and on weekends and during birthday parties, or you go to the office for a quote unquote quick visit. And then you look up at your clock and all of a sudden you've been there for 3 or 4 hours doing billing. Following up on claims is tedious and it creates a massive bottleneck for your cash flow. And that's exactly why Practice Solutions does billing for practices that take insurance. We take your practice's billing completely off your plate. Our team handles everything from eligibility and benefits to charging cards to posting payments, following up on denials. And we deal with insurance companies every single day so that you can focus on growing the practice. It's time to stop stressing over the billing and getting back to what you do best, which is running your business as best as you can. Head over to practicesol.com today to schedule your free consultation to see if our done-for-you billing services are right for you. All right, let's get back to today's episode. Are there any, during due diligence, things that you think are, innocent mistakes that founders think are operational quirks that actually end up taking a lot off of the valuation?
Founders think are innocent mistakes. All kinds of things come up in due diligence. And so you're under the microscope. That's the reality. And my friend and partner, who's the pit bull with the ribeye, sometimes says it's a proctology exam. Make no mistake. And so interesting things come up in proctology exams.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot, I do see a lot of stuff with payers come up. So practices may have unique ways of addressing deductibles, user fees, right? Everything from deductibles to co-pays to co-insurance. And you do have to make choices. And with a larger practice, a high volume of claims. And how is that whole process administered? I'm going to say unevenly very often. I'm sure. Is that a diplomatic way of putting it?
That's a very good way to say that. I'm going to fold that one in now.
So there's a need to follow the law and to do what is ethical, right? And so that's important for us. When these issues come up, they are significant red flags and can make a huge difference in how we view the transaction as well as the partner. But we're not perfect, right? So we make our mistakes too. And hopefully it all just sort of comes out in the wash where we're still able to, we're able to have honest and open conversations about what's happening. If you try to hide stuff, it's not going to go well, right, for anyone. And so hopefully we have open and honest conversations. And if something isn't in compliance, we will encourage coming into compliance and hopefully improve the business, whether we end up doing the investment or not. Hopefully the business is left in a better place and patients are better served. I hope that.
Yeah, that is the idea for sure. Does it ever adjust the price, the valuation?
It certainly could.
It
Right.
could.
So both parties have the ability, both the seller and the buyer, as a transaction proceeds, both parties monitor the performance of the business. And no one wants to shift that, because when you have an agreement, it took work to get there. So it takes more work to build a new agreement. And sometimes it's fair. If all of a sudden I'm earning $2 million and some things happen, my EHR breaks, all kinds of things can happen. And now after 3 months, I'm on pace for $1.5 million. That makes a humongous, may not, the $500,000 makes a difference to you, probably makes an even bigger difference to an investor. It's the nature of the beast. And so either the seller or the buyer, and it has to be justified, has to be fair. But in M&A, and this is not just mental health, this is M&A in general. Deals can get retraded.
Yeah, when you said that, that is a surprising reality. I think it makes sense though, right? Because let's say you're trying to buy a stock, the price goes up and down, and you can decide whether or not you want to buy that stock at a price, right? Based on the underlying value. Same thing with a business, right? It's just a lot more work to buy one.
The core idea makes sense, and different buyers and investors may be more or less ethical about it. So what isn't ethical is to know that you're going to do it and to wait till 5 minutes before the deal closes. And then you knew for a long time, and then all of a sudden at the very end, it wasn't like you learned something new that convinced you. You knew you were going to do this, and then you drop a bomb on people. That's not classy. That is not classy.
Well, that doesn't sound like you, right? I mean, don't imagine that would be.
We've certainly had to do it. I'm not going to lie. We have had to do it, and we do our best. There's a delicate balance at our end, because we want to be fair and give people as much of a chance to right the ship as possible. So sometimes I've delayed too long out of being nice, frankly. And sometimes that's a mistake too. So it's a very delicate balance to find out what's fair, but it isn't our choice. And it's not, it's very easy to just sort of say, you're being greedy. And first of all, that's not something I could ever tell my investors. But the reality is, business is not inherently evil. I'm often telling people in our industry that's the case. And an investor is, wears on their sleeve the fact that they are for-profit people. And I don't apologize for that. And I think in the long term, you make more money if you treat people ethically and openly anyway. So we strive to do it. And in the cases in which I've waited too long, it's been out of niceness, and sometimes that's been a mistake. Mm-hmm. And so I may regret kind of one or two instances like that. And me being better at my job, has me thinking through the right time to do it when it has to be done very, very carefully. So there's all kinds of ethical, financial, human implications to doing it. We think I can tell you, we think about that very, very carefully. I absolutely lose sleep over it. But not going to lie, it happens. And it happens on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, no, that's true. And yeah, you're right. Business is not evil. There's a really often misquoted verse in the Bible. People say that the Bible says that money is the root of all evil, and it's not. That's not what the Bible says. It's the love of money is the root of all evil.
That's right.
And that's accurate, right? I mean, it's like money is just the gas in the gas tank to try to accomplish whatever your organization is trying to do. But it's a terrible goal in itself. It's a bad goal if that's your objective.
I think so many spiritual traditions. I actually just did a gospel reread, which we'll have to talk about at some point.
Yeah, love to.
Which is always interesting as a Jewish person to do a gospel reread.
Yeah.
I think a lot of spiritual traditions would emphasize pursuing your purpose and money flowing from that, as opposed to chasing the money directly.
Yeah, you're going to fall into a lot of problems if you're just chasing the money directly. And you're right. There are a lot of traditions that warn against that for good reason, by the way. So yeah, that's good. Any thoughts on how AI is changing how you look at a practice when on the buy or sell side?
One of the things I think about with creating partnerships on the buy or the sell side is the founders' openness to AI, how they're thinking about it. So I see the spectrum. of clinician founders that are super open to it, and some that are convinced that it's going to destroy the patient therapist relationship. And I think that that's a spectrum that you see mirrored in society broadly.
Yeah, yeah.
And look, the reality is it's happening. And if you want to compete in the professional world writ large, you got to learn some things. You can't become consumed by it and lose your humanity. But I have a good friend, Dan Turchin, who runs a company called People Rain in San Francisco. And they do, sort of customer service and HR functions, building AI human partnerships. And so AI is here. We need to have a thoughtful relationship to it. That's the way I would put it. And so our humanity still matters, and we don't want to diminish the patient-therapist relationship. But if a lot of note-taking is taken off the hands of a therapist, they're going to appreciate it, and they're going to show up in a more human way for clinicians. And so that's the kind of balance we should generally be striving for. And my experience, with building partnerships, I'm thinking about that spectrum and where are clinician founders on that spectrum, appreciating that most have some clinical training that for good reason has some risk aversion in it. They want to be sure that a machine isn't going to screw people over. And that matters too, right? All those considerations, I think, apply for someone who's thinking about it thoughtfully.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, I think note taking is one of the best applications of AI in this industry, for sure. The other one is prior authorization. I mean, did you know that 20% of all healthcare flows through some PA process?
I did not, but that's so interesting. And PA is
wild
changing.
Number. Oh, yeah. Hopefully for the better. That's 1 out of every 5 claims, Dan. It's crazy.
That is crazy. And more, this is in healthcare generally. Do you know how that number is in behavioral health?
Mostly psych testing. Outpatient therapy is not subject to the PA process.
TMS is, isn't it?
I don't think so.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. But like if you're going to do like a neuropsych eval, most likely payers are going to ask for some kind of prior authorization. But
yeah, and they're going to want to understand what is medically necessary.
That's right. That's right. And all that can be automated, and that's great. That's a great thing. So yeah, I hope it makes everybody's jobs easier. Like we don't all need to be drafting emails, like there's a robot that can do that for you.
Well, I have to give you credit. I see what you do with like your calendar. You sir are very thoughtful about how you're building AI and machine human partnerships in your own company.
Yeah, we are. And we want, because billing is like ripe for change, right? And it would be very difficult. I mean, kudos to whoever can do it, right? Like AI, automate all of billing. It's going to be very hard to do because payers can change requirements whenever, right?
Yep.
And it's different. You correct me if I'm wrong about this, Dan, but like law, for example, like laws are on the books. You can read them. There's a pretty prescribed way to change laws. Maybe AI can do like read laws, look up, like do case research a lot better than a paralegal can for much cheaper. I don't know. Is that roughly the size of it or no?
Yes. There's no question that law is this strange beast where there's objective and subjective elements to it. It's not quite a math equation. The aspects of it that are more like math equations and the aspects of it where, if I have a very long legal document, my God, it's so much faster to have AI spot the biggest issues.
Right.
When I started at the law firm I started at, I had to do these god-awful legal research projects where I'd have to I'd be in a library full of old school books. This was in 2011, 2012. And I'd have to go through so many books.
No.
Right. So that was painful. It didn't last too long there for probably good reason.
Just crushing. Yeah.
And the part of it that was fun was coming up with a creative argument and seeing somewhere if there was any law that backed you. That part was fun. And I think there's going to be 70 or 80% of that AI can do. And then right now anyway, and maybe that'll evolve, there's like a 20% where, and I can't put my finger on it, but a lot of the LLMs I played with, there's various types of reasoning that they can't quite do. And so if you're doing complex things, you don't want to be too reliant just on AI. You today want a human looking over. Even if you have AI, take a first stab at some legal work, you still want a human to double check it. And so there's no question there will be fewer lawyers. there are going to be fewer lawyers. And I would guess that there's still going to be a group of really, really good lawyers, maybe fewer people going to law school and incurring $80K worth of debt annually. It may not be a bad thing.
Oh, man, that's so much. Oh, yeah, I hope not. We don't know what the unintended consequences are of this whole thing, and we're going to find out. So it's a journey. Dan, I appreciate you being here. How do they get more Dan in their life?
Yeah. They should want that, right?
I mean, I think so.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I would say go to www.firesidestrategic.com. You can check out also the Your Group Practice podcast with the URL www.yourgrouppracticepodcast, or I think it's yourgrouppractice.com. I should know what that URL is.
Yeah. That's
one of those two. And so check out the podcast where I'm interviewing folks like Jeremy, but a lot of group practice owners in particular. And you can always email me at dan@firesidestrategic.com if you want to talk anything group practice. And very excited to work to build the right partnerships on both the buy side and the sell side. You guys are my people, excited to help you, and very excited to see what the next couple of years are going to be a really interesting time to buy or sell your practice. So come talk to me. I don't bite too much.
I love it. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Dan, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have two places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.